Six pack Lapadat. I got the boys with me, Matt Gary, Rory Lynch. Gentlemen, we're going to talk about World Games. A couple people DM me and they said not a single podcast was doing World Games preview shows and was wondering what's going on. Some of the air taken out of that balloon. But I said, fret not, mon frere. There'll be a recap show. Now, I'm going to be all my cards on the table here. I seen all the highlights as it coming in and the results, but I didn't watch the live stream. And I wasn't at the event. So I'll let you gentlemen help me out here in terms of the telling. Rory, were you at the event physically?
No, I watched three of the four sessions live, and but wasn't there.
Gotcha. And Matt, you were there, boots on the ground physically.
Yes, sir. I was there
Okay.
for all the classic lifting. Yep.
All right. Matt, what was your experience? How did you feel about this thing physically on the ground there?
I mean, if I were to summarize World Games in one word, I would use the term spectacular because in my mind's eye, it truly was a spectacle. Um, for all the things that we've said on the podcast before, Ryan, like head-to-head battles and world championships and the key meets that we have in our sport now, which are our worlds, our regional championships, and clearly Sheffield. This is the pinnacle of the sport. It happens once every 4 years. I think we can go round and round, kind of like you went toe to toe with Eric Helms on the previous podcast, discussing which one carries more weight. Is it more weighty to be a World Games champion versus a world champion? Just the significance of this, because it happens every 4 years. I think carries some weight, and you had to podium at the previous World Championships, which was 2024, in order to qualify for this. And then if you didn't do that, you could get in as a reserve, and there were some wild card slots available and so forth. But every single aspect of this entire experience felt like the Olympics to me. And I think every other competitor can echo those sentiments, even the ones who perhaps didn't perform as well as they wanted to and came away with a sour taste based on their performance, came away with a very sweet taste in terms of the entire experience and the spectacle of it all and the way that they were treated. And just, I mean, from the moment you touch down in Chengdu, everything said World Games. You get to the airport and you can't walk 10 paces without seeing signs about the World Games. There are staff in the airport, boots on the ground, directing you to go to the right spaces to claim your luggage, to go to the right places to catch your shuttle, et cetera, et cetera. And then as you're driving through town, you can't go a single block without noticing either a billboard or a sign, or color schemes, or something saying World Games. So in that way, it had that Olympic aesthetic, that Olympic feel to it. I've never been to an Olympics, but certainly when you turn on the television and watch the Olympics, this is exactly what that looked like. It's what it felt like. The facilities were literally and figuratively state of the art. I mean, up to speed. And it was just an unbelievable, mind-blowing, awesome experience. And just the way that the athletes were treated, the coaches were treated, the athletes village, the meals that we were all able to share together, as you've noted many times, Ryan, staying in an athlete village was incredible. From every last detail. I mean, they had nutritional info on every food dish at the athletes village. You don't get that in a lot of places. And so that's important for athletes, clearly, in a body weight sport where you're trying to track your macros. It's those finishing touches. The athletes village was air conditioning. We don't even get that at some of our world championship hotels, as Rory can attest to. And so that was huge because it was very hot and humid over there. And the level of security and the level of detail that they just went through to make this just a premier experience was just extraordinary at every turn. So my experience, clearly being boots on the ground, is very different than the viewership experience that, I've heard some complaints about the live stream and about some of the commentating and so forth, but I can only sing the praises of the event itself.
In terms of the event itself, did you have an opportunity to see any of the other sporting events?
I did not. So things were, no, I didn't, unfortunately. And that was one of the drawbacks. I mean, Chengdu is a very large city. I don't know how many geographical miles it is, but this place is enormous. Just to give you an example, it was about an hour from the airport to the athletes village, and from the athletes village to where we had to go for the closing ceremony was about an hour, 60, maybe even 70 minutes by bus. And so it's a huge city, a huge footprint. And I know that a lot of the physical venues where some of the competitions were taking place in other sports were very spread out in different parts of the city. Like we were in Athletes Village B. There was an A and a B, and we were staying in Village B. And I think Athletes Village A was approximately an hour away. So it did make it difficult from the perspective of, okay, if you want to see some other sports, it's like, man, I might have to travel all the way across the city, because it's like, look, clearly the sport venue for like softball is going to be completely different than the sport venue they're using for powerlifting or fencing or tug of war or any of these other experiences. So no, I personally did not get to see any of the other sports up close and live, but clearly, in the athletes cafeteria and dining hall, you're rubbing elbows with all of those other people, athletes, coaches, and so forth. So that was kind of cool, saying all the athletes, but I did not get to experience any of the other sports. And to be fair, didn't make much of an effort to do so, because once you get there, you're trying to get a lay of the land. You're trying to make sure that your athletes are sorted, that they're ready. They've got to get training. They've got to get training in, their last couple of sessions. You're trying to find stores if you need groceries, et cetera. Not that you really needed any of that stuff or needed much of it, because you had 3 meals a day provided to you, at the athletes village. But that was kind of occupying our time before the competition. And then afterwards, I think the big thing to do in Chengdu was to go see the pandas. So a lot of us made reservations to go see the pandas at the panda exhibit. That was kind of the main, attraction, if you will, that was non-World Games affiliated.
How was the interaction between powerlifting athletes and the other athletes? How did they receive us?
I think it was cool. I mean, look, this is my understanding, and this is what I was told. That arena that we were in was enormous. My understanding was they had 3,000 spectator tickets for the class of powerlifting. I was told that they sold out, and it looked to me, when you looked out in the crowd, that, yeah, that felt like, I mean, here's the comparison I draw, right? Is you're in a theater at Sheffield, and I believe the Sheffield capacity, if I'm not mistaken, is 2,200 roughly. It felt like it was that and more, but because you're in this gigantic arena, they're a little bit spread out. So you had a lot of people in front of you, and then you had some people kind of on the sides to the fringes. There were some people a little bit in the upper decks. So it is to say that 3,000 that they sold tickets for, if in fact they all came, were a little bit more spread out. So, and there was a distance obviously separating the stage, as I'm sure you could see from the live stream and the highlights, separating them from the crowd. So it's not as though the crowd was right up on top of you, but at times they were noisy, they were loud, they were supportive, and it felt like they were really pulling for the athletes. And just like I said, from an aesthetic standpoint, it just felt like, hey, I turned on NBC and now I'm watching the Olympics. I mean, just from the blue color and the aesthetic and the cleanliness, the sharpness, just the way that it was, even the TV crews, I think you saw that you could probably garner that from the live stream, is that once the lifter came off the platform, you had a crew that kind of followed that lifter oftentimes all the way back to their seat, and kind of gained some of that interaction and that play, those conversations that they had with the coach. So that was kind of cool, because it kind of captured some of that interaction with their coach on screen.
Rory, what are you thinking, sir?
It's a shame because I was really, really excited, and Matt has painted a really great picture of the experience of being there. But the live stream just I think let the event down quite a lot. So like I think there was a few issues with it. Firstly, the cameras that followed the athletes right back to their seats, I thought that was a real highlight. I thought that was really cool. And they also particularly for the first lifter or sometimes two lifters for the beginning of a discipline, often they would follow that person while they were getting ready as well. So like coming up for the first squats, you see that person joking around with their coach, you see them starting to put their wrist straps on. And so like that was kind of cool as well. So like there were aspects of it that were really fantastic. But there were some really like not so good things about the stream as well. Firstly, they used this custom app that was like quite hard to scrub through. Like if you wanted to go back and see something again, it just didn't seem like you could do that at all. Um, there were the overlays started out not working. I think they fixed them later on, but they didn't display any score sheets. And the score sheet that was live on Goodlift didn't work half the time. And the commentators just weren't reporting on the progress of the event. And so a lot of the time, it just felt like I was watching people lifting, and I had no idea who was actually winning until like the very last couple of deadlifts or so. And so as a person who's like very involved with powerlifting, I felt like I was losing track of what was happening. And I can only imagine that if you were more of a casual fan or like were completely new to powerlifting and we were just flicking through the World Games, being like, "Hey, what's going on at the moment?" You would have no idea what was happening. Um, some of the commentary was pretty average. I think there was some misleading things said. I think there were some names that were very badly mispronounced. Things like that. Um, so yeah, look, the lifting was fantastic. I actually really enjoyed watching the lifting. It was of a very high standard. But I felt like I had no idea what was happening half the time. I didn't know who was winning till right at the end. Half the time I couldn't tell if somebody had successfully made a lift or not because the lights weren't coming up and the commentators weren't saying whether it was a good lift or not. And so I was just sitting there being like, okay, like I think that was a good lift. Or they would do a slow-mo replay of a squat that missed on depth and they wouldn't show the depth. They would show like a close-up of their face or their feet or something. I'm like, okay, well, I'm no more enlightened now than I was the first time I watched that. Um, so yeah, frustrating experience as a spectator. I enjoyed the lifting. I still think it's a fantastic event. That was not a good execution of it.
think I think the IPF producing team had challenges outside of, like, we know what quality they are. Like, they at the world championships, they could produce a hell of a show. I didn't see the live stream. But I bet you that, you can't just take everything and have full autonomy and just do everything you want. So it sounds like, obviously, this doesn't sound like what would be people used to for world championships. So I'm not sure the full story in terms of what they would face, but I know at least, I don't even know who was doing what, to be honest, because I wasn't there. But I know for sure the guys behind the cameras for the IPF know how to do a powerlifting stream. What they had control of or what they were facing, I'm not sure. But that doesn't sound like their work. So I can only assume they face some obstacles. But I don't know the story or nothing, so I'll leave it at that. But yeah, they're usually, I mean, IPF Worlds is what it is. It goes without saying. But what can you do? So let's get into the actual results of, because we got somewhat limited time, as I had said, but there was some good lifting. Both you guys are in agreement on that, whether it's live stream or in person. We could agree on a couple things, and of that, there was some excellent lifting. Let's start with the women's, if I may. Tiffany Chapon, holy smokes, taking an L against Heather Connor, her first L ever at whether local or at the World Championships, four-time world champion Tiffany Chapon. Everyone's wondering what happens when Tiffany takes an L. What happens? And she's going to be at Sheffield, so the obviously not going to weigh in exactly 47 kilos, but how much heavier will she be? Well, 47.11, damn near 47 kilos. So when I say the numbers that she did, keep in mind she pretty much was 47. She doesn't need any concessions being made for her. Wow, she's around 50 kilos, though. No, 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 no. Tiffany Chapon, as a 47 and some odd change, 550. Taking, if this is a
450.
mad 450,
450.
sorry, 450.
Yeah.
Jesus Web, can you imagine? But 450. If this is
Yeah.
Tiffany Chapon after she takes an L and gets a little bit mad, oh my goodness. And this is what an L can do for you. You ask Russell Orhe, you ask anybody out there. You come back and you come back even better. So Tiffany, 165 on the squat, 107.5 on bench press. And we thought 105 at Worlds was an insane attempt call. Well, 107.5 on bench. And again, a reminder, I got you. When body weight goes up, bench press gets a lot better. Body weight went up 46.11. It's not that much body weight. We're talking fractions, and her bench soared to new heights. And then finally shaking the deadlift demon that was hanging over her, hitting not only 1.7, but 177.5. Tiffany Chapon. My goodness. What a reemergence, a resurgence from Tiffany, reasserting herself. And I remember previous because she had taken an L head to head against Heather Connor. Would she need a win head to head against Heather Connor to reassert herself as the number one 47 in the world? Gentlemen, my question to you, ordinarily I would have said I got to see the head to head, but it begs this question that she's now gone 450. There's a caveat. It was 47.11. That means a lot to you. Uncontested in the 47s, if that means a lot to you. But 450 in the numbers I just said. Matt, has she reasserted herself as a 47 despite being slightly over 47?
Yeah, I think she probably has, but I think we all want to see her go back and go head to head with Heather. I mean, Heather's the reigning world champion, and she deserves the respect on her name and on that achievement, and she deserves the opportunity to defend her title. And so on paper, yeah, Tiffany just being a stitch over and just knocks it out of the park. But I think, so yeah, on paper, technically, I guess she kind of sort of is, or, because that's not a lot of body weight over, to your point. But she's going to need to come back and go toe to toe, because one of the greatest things about the World Games is also its biggest weakness, which of course we're going to get into, is the fact that we're blessed with the opportunity that now we get to see some, because they group the weight classes, we get to see some lifters competing, not head to head, but against other lifters that they ordinarily would not have the opportunity to compete against. And in some respects, that's kind of cool. You know what I mean? It's just like, you get to see Tiffany lifting against, Evie and Megan Lee Smith, but we ordinarily wouldn't get to see that at Worlds. And then the drawback, the flip side is, as we're going to get into with the super heavies, is when you have two people who actually are in the same weight class, and then one, actually loses to the other on kilos lifted, but outpoints them, that's where it gets kind of weird for a spectator. But anyhow, that's kind of my view of things. And as you said, I mean, look, she knocked this completely out of the park. Rory and I have been extraordinarily critical, particularly of their deadlift attempt selection, and she, not only did she sort it, but she got a 7.5 kilo PB. And so that's tremendous. And yeah, so I congratulate Tiffany. I mean, hats off to her. This was an extraordinary performance. And oh, by the way, she had the best GL of the entire meet out of all of the lifters. So if you were going to say champion of champions, she was the champion of champions at the World Games on the female side.
I'll gladly eat that crow. Everything I said about their attempt selection on the bench press for Worlds, how out of pocket that was.
Yeah.
Obviously on the day it was out of pocket, but it wasn't a pipe dream. I mean, she did that and more at a slightly more body weight. It wasn't, when you're looking at it like, where did that come from? Well, I guess it happened on the platform at World Games.
Yeah, and as we always said, and like I said, Rory and I have been critical of their attempt selection and their execution, and this is what it looks like when you have a lifter who we know is really strong, and oh, by the way, they go 9 for 9, right? Because typically she's making 6.5 attempts, and you're leaving so many kilos on the table. So this is what it looks like when she can put together 9 lifts. So it sets up the stage for what, we hope to be a fantastic battle, when she faces off against Heather again. So,
Rory, has Tiff reasserted herself as the number 147 in the world?
I think no, I don't think so. And there's a couple of reasons that I think that. She doesn't have the world record. Like she did not break the world record at this event at 450. She was not 47 kilos, and we're going to get into that more when we get to the super heavyweights. But I think if we're saying you can lose a class on kilos and win on good lift points, are you really the champion? Well, she lost the 52s up by 30 kilos. And that's not exactly a fair comparison, because she only came in a stitch over 47 instead of it wasn't like she was 100 grams light or something. So it's not exactly a fair comparison. But I think if we're saying in the supers, it's a bit weird that you can win on good lift points and lose on kilos. I think we have to say the same thing here. So it wasn't head to head with any 47s who could really push her. There were other 47s there, but no one who could really push her. fantastic total. Finally put it together. Finally got that deadlift PB. I think her previous deadlift PB was set in like September 2022 or something. So that's been like a really, really long time coming. Um, but I think if she wants to assert herself as the best 47 in the world, she needs to be 47 kilos and then do it against the other 47s who can push her. So I don't want to take anything away from this performance. 124 good lift points, 9 for 9 PB total, all of those good things. I don't think this asserts her as the best 47 in the world. I think she needs to beat Heather and break the world record total to do that.
Fair enough. But let me ask you this. Tell me about the 52s. My goodness. Megan Lee Smith and Evie Corrigan were on the KOTL live in studio sessions at Worlds, and Megan Lee Smith had said, um, I want a gun for the number one spot. I'm finally believing it's possible now. And Evie had open and honestly said, I think my run as a 52 is coming to a close relatively soon, sooner rather than later. I know there was talk of possibly 500 kilos, etc. And obviously Evie leading that charge for that talk, or being at least the number one candidate people point to if that was going to happen. But she was talking as though she was likely to pass the baton to someone else, that her days were numbered as a 52. And it looks like, looky, Megan Lee Smith, long time chasing this number one position. And if Turbo Tiff did not have her main adversaries there, well, Megan Lee Smith did. And that can only be Evie Corrigan in a head up, dead on showdown. Megan Lee Smith winning. And Rory, tell me about this one, because I'm assuming this is one of the ones you saw.
Yeah, no, this was super exciting. Obviously, let's run through it really quickly first. So Megan Lee squatted 180 world record squat. From the live stream, you could not tell what the weight was though. I thought it was 178 because that's what they said she was breaking it by half a kilo. Um, and so I did not know what the weight was at the time. Again, frustrating. But anyway, squatted 180 is a world record. Evie squatted 165. That's about in line with what she's done previously at 52. Megan Lee benched 105. Evie also benched 105. I believe that's a PB for Megan Lee. It's about in line with what Evie has done previously. And then Megan Lee 197 deadlift, EV 207.5 deadlift. So it ended up being 5 kilos in it, 482.5 versus 477.5. Megan Lee was also a little bit lighter, which means that if Evie had wanted to win, she would need to beat her by a few kilos, not just like half a kilo as would be in a normal comp. So Megan Lee, world record total 482.5, and Evie 477.5. So Evie's performance since she's moved to 52 has been incredibly consistent, right? She's been hitting sort of around 477.5 plus or minus a few kilos pretty much every time that she's been at 52 since that happened. And I think that's probably reflective of the fact that she had a hard diet to get there and stay there. And like that's what happens when you are in a weight class that is like frankly too light for you, is that it is really hard to build muscle. It's really hard to recover from the training that you need to do. And so where Evie has sort of dieted into this class, and she's done really well at this class and pushed a lot of people really far, she has not really gotten better as a 52 while she's been there. Conversely, Megan Lee Smith has come up from the 47s, not particularly recently, but like over time has come up from the 47s and has like really grown into this class and pushed a really, really long way. So I don't think it is a surprise that Megan Lee has overtaken Evie. Like I think we all knew that that was coming sooner or later. I believe that Evie will be going back to 57 now. Actually, she's wanted to leave the 52s for some time, but it was restricted to the weight class that she qualified in for the World Games, which is 47 52s. So yeah, this was really exciting to watch. Bit of a baton pass, of course. Two New Zealanders on the podium, so like pretty excited about that as a Kiwi.
Plume Deckers with 559.5, excellent, and squatting 179.5, absolutely excellent showing by her. And Farid Farhana, talking about the 52s, we had a lot of 52s here. Farid, massive 217 kilo pull, dropping the hammer on that final deadlift, taking a world record for Singapore. Noemi Alibert, not quite returning to form yet. at 430, and Canada's Aurélie taking 387.5. Rory, I think this is one of your athletes as well. And Annalisa representing Italy in the 47s with the 407.5, obviously very much respected right there as well. So that'll round off the lightweight women's. Plenty of action. We had some head-to-head, some historical lifts, and it was a good one. Solid session as we move into the middleweight division. And look what we have here. Can she repeat what she did at the World Championships? Well, Alba Bolstrom, 565, did just that, going 8 for 9. And Serenaldi of Italy doing a little bit along the same pacing as Turbo Tiff, weighing a little over her weight class, 57.52. So again, I got you. She was over 57, but only by a smidgen. In the 57s, if you remember, just broke into the 520s, and that was Serenaldi leading the charge. Well, Serenaldi, a 57, still 57, just with some change, 57 point something, hit 530, new ground for the 57s. Now, of course, with that little bit of change in her pocket, that's not a world record, and she's going to do that because Sheffield's around the corner, but it starts letting you eye around the corner where the 57s are going. Previously fighting in the 515s, Serenaldi at the World Championships, assuming control of the division with a 520 and ever so quickly taking into the 530s. Gentlemen, Joy Namani was in the mix, weighed 60 kilos and change, doing 527 and a half, still a great showing on her part, but definitely, I mean, when we're talking over 3 kilos over the weight limit, now we're getting quite a bit deeper into that weight class, quite a bit deeper. That's going to impact your performance. And then, of course, Jad Jacob was there. So was Bobby Butters. So was Powell. So a lot of the 57s were there. The ladies showed up. It wasn't like Serenaldi was uncontested. Has Serenaldi now assumed control of the 57s, which previously was a rather contentious division? This time, I'll throw it to you, Matt. What do you think?
Well, she's coming off that 520 performance at Worlds, right? And so to your point, Ryan, she weighed in just a stitch heavy, and now she's totaled 530 with a perfect 9 for 9 day. And as the returning world champion, she's certainly going to be the lifter to beat. Having said that, we still have the likes of presumably Jacob, coming back into the mix. And I don't know that she's, fully returned to form. Presumably, we would have Natalie Richards, a healthier, more robust, more, just platform ready Natalie Richards coming back. So, she would certainly be in the mix. But yeah, I mean, Serenaldi right now is the number 157 in the world. I mean, that's what the totals say. That's what the data say. So, she's got to be the front runner leading the charge. I mean, but this is a stacked class. You've got talent coming all over the place in this weight class. And that's what makes it very exciting. So when they go kilo for kilo and head to head, that's going to make for some really exciting powerlifting.
How confident are you on a scale of 1 to 10 that Serenaldi is going to be a returning world champ, defending world champ successfully next year? I just want your confidence level of her reign. 57s is very contentious over the last few years, but she's showing a little bit of dominance here with a bit of a spread on these ladies. Look, Joy Namani, phenomenal lifter, spotted her, 2.5 kilos, and yet still got beat her head up. I don't know, 530. That's going to be a tough one to beat, and that's 530 now. By the time next year, I get it, the rest of the pack will improve. You got to think Sarah's going to improve. Give me a confidence rating.
I would say probably out of 1 to 10, maybe a 6. Okay. 5 to 6, kind of right in the middle. Because remember, Shad has totaled 519.5. Natalie Richards has totaled 516 and a half. Joy has gotten stronger. Yes, she weighed in heavy, but she's no longer kind of at that 506 total. I mean, that was a huge PB total for Joy. And again, to your point, Ryan, 3 kilos over. So that's a significant amount. But yeah, this is a loaded weight class. So yeah, I mean, right, kind of middle of the road, 5, 6, I would say.
I would lean a stitch more towards a 7 myself. But hey, call me. Look at Roy's face.
You guys are
Roy's,
crazy. What are you talking about? No,
right.
it's
All
like a
right.
3. It's like a 3 at most. And I'm
Oh,
being really
wow.
generous. Yeah.
That's generous. Jump into the water. It's
Yeah.
warm, buddy.
Okay.
Splash
So
around a little. Throw some in my face. I
okay.
love it.
Okay. So Sarah is the best 57 this year, right? Like she's got the 520 total. She's got the best 57 kilo total. She's got the 530 a little bit heavy. She won the world champs, right? She's the best right now. So like I'm definitely not saying she's like the odds of her not being in the pack are very good. But of course, between now and next worlds is still like 9 months, and all the time we have lifters who don't even show up. So anyone who's listening to this and they're like nine or 10, you're immediately wrong. Like I'm not even 9 out of 10 confident she's going to show up next year. Um, Beyond that, following on from Sarah, we've got Jad, who has been through a bit of a rough time, but is definitely on an upswing. We've got Nat Richards, who again has the potential to be in this mix and just like hasn't really been platform ready recently, but could be back. We have Bobby Butters a little bit further behind, but like saying that she's out of the mix, I think is probably a mistake. We're going to almost certainly have Evie coming up from the 52s. Like if you're best case, it's like 50% that she wins again next year, right? Like absolute best case, 50% that she wins next year.
And that's why I
Um,
said 5 or 6.
yeah,
Oh, you think that's the best
I
case?
think it's lower than that. Like I think by the time we
Okay.
get to say May next year and we're looking at the 57s who are signed up for Worlds, I think we're going to have 3 or 4 women who are plus or minus 10 kilos from each
Yeah,
other.
that's yeah.
And that probably means that is, the difference of plus or minus 10 kilos is the difference of messing up your bench and going 1 for 3 instead of 3 for 3, or only getting one squat, getting greedy on your second
Mm,
squat and only getting one squat in. And we see that all the time. So like I just don't think we can be that confident this far in advance about any individual person's performance at next Worlds.
Let me throw this in here. That's worse than messing up your bench. Like Sarah Naldi covered 7.5 kilos in the bench press. We're saying 10 kilos spread. Joy Namani covered 7.5 kilos in their bench. Like we're talking, like I got you. I'm okay with you saying championing some other ladies, but a 10 kilo spread in the 57s is more than a bad bench press session. I mean,
I mean,
even if
Joy
you
covered 22 kilos in her deadlifts. Like not saying that Joy is going to go 1 for 3 on deadlifts. I think that's not particularly likely, but that's when we're talking about a single lift being good or bad, or even somebody just being a little bit off form and going for 2 for 3 on squats and 2 for 3 on deadlifts, that's easily 10 kilos.
sure, now we're talking. You're really hamstring. Sarah has to be missing her third squat and deadlift. That actually makes me more confident. You just talked me into 7.
What? No, 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 no. Sarah doesn't need to be missing anything. If Sarah comes in at 530, but Nat Richards on a
It's
good day
540.
recovered comes in at 535. Like that is
Yeah.
easily a plausible scenario.
But that's throwing almost 20 kilos on the Nats. And you can. Nat might throw 20 kilos on her total. I'm just saying, I've seen Sarah do 530. I've seen Nat do 516. I don't know. Look, I'm not counting Nat out, believe me. And I love Nat. Nat, if you're listening, Jesus, don't roll on me in Austin. But I'm just saying, she's looking good. She's looking dominant. If I got $1 million on the table and I got to throw it on somebody, I'll probably throw it on Sarah right now. And I'm really impressed that we're seeing a 57 and some change go 530. That's huge. I remember when Jad Jacob was chasing the world record to get the Sheffield, and it was 495. And that was the first Sheffield, which we've only had 3. So it's crazy we're already at 530. Maybe I'm a little excited because this just happened, but we've never seen a 57 enter the 530s. So I have reason to be excited. And all right, we'll see soon enough.
Yeah,
I prefer that it's close. I'll be honest.
yeah, she basically hit the deadlift that she missed at Worlds, right? That was essentially. I mean, she squatted 5 less, but then she deadlifted 5 more. So, or yeah, ended up 5 more. So anyway, I mean, it's a really good performance, and it's kind of like the bet that you make. Do you take Serenaldi or do you take the field? And that's why I think when Rory kind of framed it that way, 50-50, I kind of like that 50-50. And I might venture out and put my money on the field. Whereas Ryan, it sounds like you'd put your money on Rinaldi. So, I mean,
It's me and you against the world, kid. If Sarah, if you're listening, apparently, if we're going like this. All right.
so
Let's talk about Alba Ballstrom. Absolutely phenomenal showing, only missing her last bench press.
yeah,
Alba, look at her. We're talking about ladies asserting themselves, and it could have went the other way. And then we'll also talk about what happened to Kiara. But
yeah.
Matt, your thoughts on Alba Ballstrom's performance?
Well, look, she showed up and showed out, right? She proved that the Worlds wasn't a fluke because she hit the exact same total that she hit at the World Championships. And she was on body weight, because she was the top class there. She had to make weight, so she came and proved that it wasn't a fluke. I mean, she missed her opening bench press, but she went up 5 kilos and got it anyway. So that's kind of like, when we look at that on a score sheet, we kind of absolve her of that first miss. But she came back and got it. And so to your point, Ryan, she really truly only missed one lift, which was the third bench. Yeah, and she had a phenomenal performance. I mean, her lifting is clean. She executes well. She's obviously got a great coach, and Kara Arvidsson there, kind of calling the attempts and so forth. So that sets her up in a good situation. And I don't know if you want to get to the Chiara Bernardi. I'm not trying to take any polish off of Alber's performance. I mean, she showed up and showed out, and it was a tight battle. It came down to just a few, I mean, what, four tenths there of a GL points, between her and Sarah. So it was exciting.
Yeah. I'll put a pin in the Kiara for a second there, just to throw it to Rory to talk about Alba. Rory, what are you thinking here? Obviously, super stacked 63 kilo class. Kiara being taken out of the competition, so we didn't really get to see, unlike Sarah Naldi, who had a field of world class 57s to showcase against, and unlike Evie versus Megan Lee Smith, in this case, due to what happened to Kiara, Alba was robbed of that ability, if you were. Not only did Kiara get robbed, but Alba did as well. She did as well, where she has an opportunity to reassert herself in head to head. However, 556, solid total. The rest of 63s will be waiting for. I can't wait to see it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't have a ton to add, right? Like 565 is an incredible total. She was on body weight. She eked a couple more kilos out of her squat and her deadlift than she did at Worlds. Um, yeah, I mean, she had an incredible day. She was very, very strong. Don't know what else to say. She did amazing, and she's an amazing athlete.
Talk to me about Kiara Bernardi then.
This was a frustrating one to watch. This was now. Firstly, I do want to say going up after a missed bench opener, and two of the women in the middleweights here did the same thing as high risk. Sometimes it puts you in a position where you are able to win. So, for example, Alba Bostrom, if she had repeated 130 and then potentially, got it on her second and then potentially gone, oh, 135 might not be enough. 140 is too big of a jump. Do I split the difference and go 137 and misses it? Suddenly that would have cost her the World Games, right? And so her going up after that 130 in this case worked out for her. It's not the same as saying it was necessarily a good idea or a safe idea, but it did work out. Now, Chiara Bernardi went up after missing her opener and missed it again twice more. Right. And so that is the risk when you go up after a miss, right? Is that either you end up horribly out of position and you have to do some like weird jumps to try and get to where you actually want it to be, or you miss altogether. The reason I say that this was a frustrating one is that the elbow depth rule is very hard to referee. Um, in my opinion, it's very inconsistently refereed. And occasionally it seems like we see a person, and I'm going to go more specific because I think the details matter, a small woman, like a lighter woman, sacrificed on the altar of the bench press depth for unscrutable reasons, right? Like I'm looking at this lift and depth-wise, I would say it's kind of borderline. However, there were plenty of other bench presses in this session and others that I thought were similarly deep that got white lights. And with my referee hat on and my coach hat on, I don't know what to do with that information because it's inconsistent, right? Like there were people who I thought were benching higher than that who got successful lifts. Um, it seems sexist, frankly, because it only ever seems to impact light women. If it was a fair rule, then we would see other people missing on bench depth, and we don't. Um, the other example I'm thinking of is Vicky Kay from Australia, who of course bombed at Worlds 2024 for basically the same reason, right? Depth that potentially borderline, but there were people in similar positions who were getting white lights, and I just like don't know what to do with that either. So, and of course, I have a little bit of bias here in that I think Chiara Bernardi has the potential to be the best 63 on earth. And I just like haven't seen it actually happen yet. But I think this is really unfortunate. And like as if I was coaching her, I wouldn't know what to do with that either. Because there are other meets where she would have done exactly that same thing, gotten white lights, probably benched like 130 or something, and potentially gone on to win the competition. And this one she just didn't because I don't know.
What are you thinking about this?
Yeah, I'm actually running her. Give me 1 second. I'm just looking. Yeah, so her GL at Worlds, right, with a 560 total was 123.15. So clearly, she's right there in the mix, right? Kind of in that top three podium position there for this middleweight battle between Alba Serenaldi and herself, right? So, yeah, presumably if she makes a bench and is able to complete the meet and make some deadlifts, she's going to be in the mix there for a podium position. And yeah, I agree with everything that Rory said. I think one of the reasons that what we see at Worlds and oftentimes why this is not refereed evenly and it's so inconsistent is because, as we've discussed many times, at World Championships, the referees come out and try to set this very strict standard right from the jump early in the week. And then as the week goes on and we get into the heavier classes, things get a little bit more laxed. And that's just the reality of it. And also the lighter, smaller lifters, both male and specifically female, tend to be the higher archers. And I think that's, kind of the intent of this rule. But the rule is, in my view, as I've said many times, needs to be repealed, revamped, whatever word you want to use. It's not
Yeah.
a good rule. It just
I
punishes the
think
lifters.
it punishes the lifters. And I think if we watch a slow motion bench press or a freeze frame of somebody paused on their chest, and we can't even agree what the top of the shoulder is in a frozen frame at a moment in time, how can you possibly do that in real time under the pressure of, you have to tell the lifter what's going on. There's new lifters coming up. You only get to see it once and you don't get to pause it. How can you possibly make that call? If we can't even make that call, like looking at a still frame together. And like that is the case, right? Like when people
Right.
draw this in, I see all different versions of what the top of shoulder is. I don't know how it's supposed to be interpreted, and I am a referee.
Right.
Well said, gentlemen. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the heavyweight women. And Carlina Tongatea setting a world record 620 kilos, taking the number one spot in the heavyweight class. And Corolla Gara, 567 and a half. Now, if you're wondering, wow, is her total dropping? Sure, but so is her body weight, 64.56. Have you paid attention to that? Interesting. That is a water cut away from the 63s, gentlemen. I'm not sure what's going to happen there, but it is definitely interesting to watch. Mark Jenner, 557 and a half. Clara, just a little bit over. She's 69.66. Clara Perot, comfortably in the 76s with 555. Uh, Gabby Martinez of USA, just a stitch over 69 kilos with 535. And 532 and a half for Britain's Amy Nelson, weighing in at 70.71. Carlina grabbing the number one spot in the women's heavyweight division with an all-star class. 620, it's big. It's around the total that she always wanted, and she hit it, and she hit it no less at the World Championships. Carlina back to back. You got the World Championships, you got the World Games title, and of course, Corolla Gara. Want to get your guys' impression. What's going on with that body weight? Do you think just a stitch light on the day? or are we seeing a possible return to the 63 kilo class? Matt?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I didn't have any conversation with Corolla or her coaches, so I really have no inclination one way or the other as to which way she's swinging. But she's close. Look, she's closer to 63 than she was to 69, right? So we don't know if that was intentional. If she's you know in the process of cutting and was just using World Games because it could maximize her GL. So I'm not sure.
Rory, what was your impression on this session?
I don't know if we should interpret Corolla as cutting to 63 or not either, because this is like, yeah, 64.5. She's probably even lighter than some of the 63s were when they started their cuts. Um, she But it is the opportune time if you're going to do a cut and then come back up to weight. It's the opportune time to do it because there is actually an advantage of coming in light at the World Games, whereas there is an advantage in other competitions, but it's much smaller. She was also light at the World Championship. She was 66 and a half, so not as light. She's definitely lighter than she was, but she wasn't a full size 69 at that time either. So like I'm not really sure how to interpret that at the moment. Um, this was the session that I was the most confused about as a spectator, though, because the commentators kept implying that Gabby Martinez was winning through the entire competition right until the last
Mm-hmm.
deadlifts, and I thought that she was like in the mix, and I was like, oh, this is unexpected. This is very cool. Obviously, that's not the case, but I didn't understand that while I was watching as a spectator. So like I said, very frustrating. Carlina though, oh my goodness, what a performance. 620 at 76. And actually at weight. So yeah, phenomenal performance from her. World record total. One of only two record totals set by the woman, by the way. So yeah, phenomenal day from her.
Yeah, I think Carlina missed. Yeah, go ahead, Ryan. I'm sorry.
No, no, you go. You go.
I was just going to say, I think, yeah. So that was with one missed squat as well, right? So I believe what they called her on her first one. I don't believe it was squat depth. I think they weren't happy with her starting position, and
Yeah, she
so
didn't even get a squat command on the opening
yeah,
once she timed out.
right, exactly. So she opted to obviously repeat the weight, and then of course jump the 10 kilos and then finished out the day. And I think what we're looking at here, kind of as Rory had mentioned with the previous session, the middleweights. You had a situation where Alba missed her opening bench and decided to go ahead and jump the 5 kilos. Conversely, this was a situation where Corolla kind of ran into the same issue. Now she missed her opening bench and decided to repeat it. And so she went ahead and repeated it. And then when she made the jump to her third, didn't make the third. So it's kind of a question of, had Corolla, let's say, gone up to 140 or 142, right? Kind of like
Yeah.
kind of like Alba did. You're right. She scores some more kilos there. She secures some more GL points. And then perhaps we're talking, and that's not taking anything away from Carlina. Lover absolutely has had the year of her life, podiums at Sheffield, and then wins Worlds, right? Reclaiming her title, and then comes and wins World Games. So I'm not taking any shine off of her performance. I'm just saying that we could have had a different outcome had Corolla potentially, decided to go up in the bench. But there's no way of saying, oh yeah, if she'd gone up 2.5 or 5 kilos, that she would have in fact made it. Maybe she didn't meet the standard then. So I know that Corolla was probably a little bit disappointed, but hey, all credit to Carlina. She took a big jump there from her second to her third deadlift to the tune of 15 kilos, and she's getting awfully close to potentially taking Jess Bittner's world record away from her. So yeah, 620, her previous world record total was 616. And so that was, yeah, it was an exciting session, kind of the way that it unfolded. Marta Jenner is always just kind of hanging around there, right? It's like she's just like that damn fly that you're trying to swat away, but she just won't go away. She just won't go away, and puts together an 8 for 9 performance there. I know a little bit of frustration probably on the behalf of Gabby Martinez, and kind of the decisions that were made with her deadlifts there. When you have a situation there where we are going off of GL points, but you had Gabby Martinez, and if you look at the body weights, is basically almost, really, really close to Marta Jenner. So when you're coaching in that situation, you almost are kind of going like a world situation where you are kind of going kilo for kilo, right? And you're trying to match up. And I think the coaching staff saw that and tried to try to match Marta and cover their spread there, and that was kind of a fateful mistake. And then, of course, Great Britain's Annie Nelson didn't quite have the day that she wanted, had to repeat her second squat because she didn't meet the standard in terms of depth, and then couldn't hang on to her last deadlift. So her total was down a little bit, but certainly she's gained strength, and we look forward to her potentially expressing that in future meets. But this was a cool session, and just, yeah, hats off to Carlina for setting a world record total, on powerlifting's biggest stage. So.
Well, take it easy there, man. Tell you that last sentence, you get me going here. I just got a message. My MMA session has been canceled for tonight. So hey, let's rock and roll as long as we want, huh? All right. Well done. Nice wrap up there, fellas. If we move on to the super heavyweight women's division, and Canada's Brittany Schlater asserting herself in the #1 spot, with a record, or sorry, not a record, but a total 725. And of course, Sonita from Belgium, 727.5. And Natalie Lalai of Australia, 692.5. Massive deadlift on this young lady, 287.5. Went all the way up to 300, went a go at it to be the first woman to pull 300, make it a world record, missed it. 287.5, moved relatively gingerly, so might have been there and could be there on a different day. Then we got Jewel coming with 677.5, Ziana with 617.5, Bessie with 612.5, and Megan Fowle with 545, followed by Canada's Danielle Philibert with 535. And those are the totals from the super heavyweight division. Let me throw it to you first this time, Rory. What are some of the takeaways you have in the super heavyweights?
Right. So I think my opinion might be a little bit spicy on this one. And I think um, hats off to Brett for firstly for winning, but I think, in my opinion, more importantly, playing the game that was on the day. And so, and I'm going to preempt this. I know that some people will look at this and go, "Hey, look, she lost on kilograms," and this is what we kept saying we were going to come back to, right? Their body weights were not that different, right? Like there's 5 kilos in it, with which when you're 130 kilos is a pretty small percentage. It's not like the 4 kilos that I alluded to between like Tiffany and Megan Lee earlier on. Um, but the competition is on good lift points. And so winning on kilograms, yes, you might win on kilograms. That might feel good for some reason, but the competition is on good lift points. And right, like, and I have to give hats off to her for playing the game that was the game of the day, um, and winning, which is just like, I think is probably the most important thing, right? Like, and so, yeah, huge day from her, 287 kilo squat, 160 bench, very big deadlift on her, 277.5. Just phenomenal day from Brett.
Oh, look I'll say this straight up. Win. Just win, okay? For sure, win. And yeah, I'm Canadian. This has got nothing to do with what would you do on the day. Yeah, I'd fucking win, huh? But all I'm saying is, and this has been consistent throughout for like years, when not even before we even knew World Games was coming down the pipeline. This I've been consistently saying I prefer kilo for kilo showdowns, and I'm not a fan of formulas. I've never been a fan of formulas. I'm far more. The reason why I love the World Championships is because it's a direct head to head of people within their own weight class, and it's straight up who's stronger. I don't want, I don't care about formulas. And that's the one piece that hurt when Eric was trying to tell me about, World Games. I'm like, yeah, but you could weigh slightly less, be in the same weight class and win, despite the fact that you had the smaller total. And while, if we're comparing Tiffany Chapon and Evie and Megan Lee, they're not rivals from the same weight class, though, and we understand that. Whereas Sunita and Britt sure as heck are rivals for years and have given us some amazing, fierce battles. Gave us another one, by the way. Still glad that they have each other and keep pushing each other. It just becomes a more difficult conversation because as powerlifters and powerlifting fans, we're more used to seeing, if you're in the same weight class, historical rivals let's find out who's stronger, and we don't have to worry about formulas. Whereas when you have a tournament based on formulas, and this kind of happens, um, I don't know. It's going
Look,
to be
I
received.
agree with all of that, Ryan, but we only have two competitions that I can think of, or two competitions that I care about at least, that are done on formula. It's World Games and Sheffield. And Sheffield is even a formula that goes within a weight class. So like that's kind of a different thing even. Like this is really the only competition that is done on formula. And so like we get head-to-head battles with these people. I don't want to say all the time, often enough to like sort of whet that appetite. I would rather see a head-to-head battle in a weight class as well. That's just not this meat.
I was going to say, I was just about to say, but I don't have an appetite for IPF points. Sure, but whatever. Don't let me stop it. But nevertheless, I'm saying all this. I mean, Brit Team Canada, do exactly what you did, obviously. Like get the win, obviously. This was a bigger conversation I was having, not about this straight up battle. The rivalry continues. As far as Brit's concerned, hey yo, we had a head to head at Worlds, and I won that way. And this time I'll win this way. I just want to keep winning. 100%. Like it's not that. Like for God's sake, Brit. The thing that Brit has is I've already proven I can win in a head to head. So, and she's a several time world champ. So it's not about her, so to speak. It's whatever. What we were talking about earlier did happen. Matt, what is your impression on the super heavyweight women and your takeaway, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, Ryan, with you, and I've been pretty vocal about that I do prefer kilo for kilo. But like you said, to your point, also, Brittany played the game and won the meet in the format that it was contested. So, look, both ladies, I think the story, surrounding Sunita's performance is the missed squats, right? Because that to the tune of losing out on 20 kilos, and that's a huge chunk of your total. So, she currently is, as we all know, is the world record holder in the squat discipline with 318 kilos. And my understanding, after having talked to Sunita personally and Christoph as well, I believe her fiance, and then of course, kind of reading the tea leaves on social media after the fact. The understanding was, I think, Sunita had only planned on taking 2 squats. So that's pretty aggressive attempt selection. I know that she squatted 325 kilos in training, but that's in training, and that's under your own conditions and so on and so forth. And now you come to a meet and you're going to open at 305 and take a 20 kilo jump. And so that, is rather aggressive attempt selection on her. The first time that she tried it, which was on her second attempt, it looked to me like she misgrooved it. I don't know what her reason for missing it, but she kind of got buried in the hole, like didn't even come up with the weight, and they caught her. And then she repeated it and actually lifted the weight. And initially it was good, 2-1 decision. It was good. And then it was overturned by the jury. And apparently, from what I understand, is they didn't have monitors at the jury table. So I know that there's a lot of controversy surrounding that. This time they didn't have monitors for instant replay. And so you're saying, how can people sitting so far away at a jury table without the benefit of the instant replay overturn what was actually called on the platform? And so while you say that sentence out loud, and that makes sense, we also need to understand that for many, many, many years, we didn't even have replay, and juries were making decisions and overturning lifts without the benefit of the replay. And then also, even, to my understanding, and Ryan, you might be, I mean, you started doing IPF commentary in 2016. Do you know if the jury tables had replay at that point in time?
Listen, look at this guy with his powerlifting trivia, Rory.
Yeah,
Undefeated.
So, yeah. So anyway, my point is, we've had monitors at the jury tables for, I think, probably the last 5 to 6 years, is my understanding, but I don't know that they've actually been using it in the way that they currently use it, which is to replay the lift, to watch it from the different angles. I think that's only been done in the last 2 to 3 years. And I don't want to go on this long tirade about how the refereeing and the jury system needs to be revamped. Again, I've been pretty vocal about that. I am also an IPF referee, and I think that there's some changes that need to be made. Having said that, this was a big deal. She lost it. They were aggressive on their attempt selection. They went in, went hard, and they missed a lot of kilos because they weren't able to secure, a third squat, where in there, they were only going to take two, but, because she missed the second one, they took the third one. So, and then of course, both she and Brittany missed third benches, and then both she and Brittany missed the third deadlifts. And so that's kind of how it played out. And so, to your point, Ryan, you have a lifter who out totals the other lifter, but then loses on points. Yeah, that's the situation. But some good lifting by the super heavyweights. I mean, both of these lifters were down, I think, from their totals, but it's also nice to see. Just fun fact, this is my understanding, kind of an inside scoop. If you saw, Sonita was wearing the full length singlet. And so my understanding is she actually does not prefer that for the squat because she gets a little bit of slippage in the knee sleeves, but she does like the benefit that it gives her in the deadlift because now the bar is not getting hung up on her legs as much. Whatever she's done to retool her deadlift looked light years better than the version that we saw at Worlds, right? I think we can remember at the World Championships, Sonita struggling with the deadlifts. And so whatever she has done, whatever she has worked on, form tweaks, etc. I mean, she only secured her opening deadlift of 245 kilos in Germany. And now she opened on 250, hit 265 comfortably. And then, oh, by the way, only missed 275 on a technicality because I guess it didn't appear locked out. So, yeah, she's got her deadlift sorted. And so this is all setting up, as you said, for, potential rematches at Worlds. And I think, these are the two, these are the clash of the Titans. These two have clearly separated themselves from the rest of the super heavyweight division globally. But also nice to see Natalie Lalai coming in and performing as well as she did. My God, she went 8 for 9, only just a narrow miss with that last deadlift. Had Jewel Tossie, this is pretty cool, had Jewel Tossie from New Zealand made her final pull at 267.5, Jacob would have needed to take 300.5 for her final deadlift for Natalie's to eclipse that mark. But as it stood, because Jewel had missed, Natalie was already in that third position. So yeah, this was a fun session. And also I will mention this as well. Bessie O'Brien is a junior from Nehru, coached by Jezza. And I think Ryan, you saw that I posted in my story.
Couldn't believe how small Jezza is.
Yeah, unreal. So that dude sat next to me on the bus, and I'm like, man, this cat looks awfully familiar. And I know that the crew.
No, he does not.
Just his face. I'm like, I've seen this guy before, right? Like he looks familiar, but I literally thought that it was like some of Jess's crew that used to kind of rock up at Worlds, and stuff like that, his family. And so I didn't say anything to him on the bus, and he kind of looked at me funny. And then later in the week, I saw that Dom had posted a picture, and he's like, "Did you see Jess?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't see him." He's like, "This is him." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's the guy I sat next to on the bus." So I walked up to him just apologetically, and I was like, "I am so sorry, man. I did not recognize you." And he put his arm around me, and he's like, "It's all good, man." He goes, "A lot of people don't recognize me." And he's lost like almost 100 kilos. I mean, you want to talk about an absolute physical transformation. He is almost unrecognizable. And to think that man, because looking at our heights, I mean, we're basically the same height, that he used to have 100 more kilos in body weight is just extraordinary. So he looks fantastic. He's doing well. And he was coaching Bessie O'Brien, this junior, who was just freakishly strong. I mean, she squatted a junior world record of 290 kilos. It looked like she was going to rep it.
She's 19.
And so
she's 19.
Yeah.
She's a teenager squatting 290.
I know, just absolutely bananas, right? It was just fun to see this young girl going out there on the World Games stage and lifting as much weight as she was lifting. It's extraordinary. So as naturally, we can all assume that as she matures and continues to, grow into the class and just mature as a young woman, it'll be really exciting to see what she can squat. I mean, look, imagine if they'd have loaded 305. And she would have made 305 on her third squat. You mean to tell me she's squatting the same as Sonita on the day? I mean, that says something.
Also, let me say, if Sonita had gotten that third squat, and watching the reel on Instagram,
Yeah.
It looked like it could have passed. I mean, it's a
Right.
50-50 type of call, whatever.
It's
You
yeah.
throw 20 kilos on 727.5. We're talking 747.5. We're this is crazy. Sunita's potential is absolutely bonkers if she can
Yeah.
nail that squat. And she
Yeah, and
might. She was ever so close.
yeah, she was ever so close, and the deadlift was really close as well. I think she just called because got called because it was soft at the top, but you added another 10 kilos there, and so yeah, she's really on the cusp of again another significant breakthrough when she can put all the lifts together. So
Hats off to those women. And if you're
yep,
wondering, in terms of the 123 Turbo Tiff with
yep.
124.45, Alba Bolstrom in second with 123.8, and Sarah Naldi of Italy with 123.48. And that gentleman is the women's section of World Games. And I think, did you have something else you want to throw in there, Matt?
I just want to throw in one final thing because otherwise I'm going to get just Jurens Kanganamu is going to crucify me. I just want to give a shout out, obviously, to the two Brits in the 57s because we didn't touch on them too much. Joy Amani hit a world record of 240, and it is really nice. We talk about having ace cards up your sleeve every time you walk into a competition, and the number one ace card is to be the strongest woman in the room. Well, she's got the second best ace card, and that's the best deadlift, right? Because you can pull last. And so we have, capitalized on the benefit of her pulling last, and she was able to pull into that bronze medal position with her third and final pull. And also Bobby Butters absolutely lighting it up in 9-for-9 flawless fashion, hitting lifetime PBs in every single discipline and crossing the 500 kilo threshold for the first time at also just a stitch over the 57 kilo mark. So hats off to the two Great Britain ladies.
There you have it. All right, gentlemen. Let's conclude this episode and then we'll take it up at the men's. And for everybody listening, as per usual, please do subscribe, give us high ratings, and until next time, six pack Lapadat, six up, and we are out.